Hello, everyone. How are you? Before we begin, I want to first applaud all of you for being here with us for this really important event. Give yourselves out. Yeah. This is important. So, my name is Astro. I use they, them pronouns. I am a proudly queer, non-binary person of color. I'm a board member with Diversity Alliance of the Puget Sound. I'm a social worker. I'm a community organizer. I'm a journalist. I'm a graduate student. I'm a sex worker advocate and a trans rights activist. That last piece is the most important part for this evening. So I founded this TDOR event 4 years ago because, quite frankly, no one else in Seattle was doing it. And I was like, what the heck? This is so important. Beautiful human beings are being killed just for being who they are, and someone has to do this work. So I decided to show up, even though it meant emotional labor and all kinds of other stuff, right, that I've had to go through to make these events happen for the last 4 years. But it's something I'm so passionate about. I couldn't sleep because it bothered me so much, right? Like, someone has to do this. If not me, who? If not now, when? So I showed up, and I do this work. And even in the midst of a global pandemic, it hasn't stopped me from making this event happen. And I just want to say how pleased I am that you have all decided to push through your COVID fatigue and all the other kinds of fatigue that we're going through right now to be here with us, to celebrate the lives that we have lost, and to grieve and rage and mourn and connect. Because that's really what today is about, is all of those things. And we must come together to do this. So thank you all for being here. I'm really blessed and honored to also have been joined over the last 4 years by an amazing team of people without whom this event would not have happened. None of them would have happened. And they have been so committed to this cause, and they have put in the work, and they have made this thing possible with me, and I really just want to take a moment to honor them all, and I'll get to all of them in a few moments here, and just offer my deepest gratitude for everyone who has shown up in this work with me. But first, I think we need to ground ourselves. So I would like to introduce to you my most committed co-conspirator, Morgan, who will guide us forward in tonight's programming and intention with a land acknowledgement.
Pia'a, kwaia tsagi nanon tami ti tswibri, tami tiwi, tami nekora minoo, mai matsia, supika mai, semayu. I invite all present, friends, family, and strangers in Seattle, Tacoma, and remotely, to take a moment to center ourselves in this space, in this work we do together. I wish to acknowledge the land we occupy, the unceded lands of the Coast Salish people, including the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people. We honor with gratitude the land itself, the Duwamish tribe, the Native nations and tribes whose land remains unceded, and the indigenous nations and communities which continue to thrive throughout the Pacific Northwest. Take a deep, slow breath of gratitude for the land we occupy as we build our communities in the spirit of healing and inclusion. Pesau hutsipko aho.
Thank you so much, Morgan. So I want to give a huge shout out to Morgan. Morgan has been the most engaged in this work that I chose to do, including the emotional labor of finding names and causes of death and all that stuff that we do every year. She has committed herself to creating that list, to finding those photos, and to building the people that we are going to honor tonight as a collective list. And I would like to ask all of you to give an applause to Morgan for the work that she does with me. Without her, I would not be able to do this. She has just been so lovely to work with. We've known each other for several years, and it's just been such a pleasure to work with you, Morgan. And I know the heart part of what you do and how you repeatedly have to see this pain and this hurt and this, like looking at fatality over and over and over again as a commitment is a big deal. And I love you for that. And I thank you so much for being with me and for doing this work and being committed to it. And I love you forever. So thank you. So as I said, I don't do this by myself. Morgan and I don't do this by ourselves. We have a team of people who are equally as committed to this work that we do. When I first started doing this in 2018, I was on my own. I had no sponsors, I had no money, I had no support. It was just me. And I literally put this sucker together in 2 weeks. And we made it happen. And from there, people started to pay attention and say, hey, what can we do? How can we stand with you and make this thing happen? And it's built since then, right? And so now I am pleased to be able to say that the University Unitarian Church has opened their doors to us for free and allowed us to be present here to hold this very sacred moment together. Human Rights Campaign of Seattle, Q Center of University of Washington, PFLAG of Washington, Rainbow Center, and Diversity Alliance of the Puget Sound, of which I am a board member, are all part of making this event happen. And I want to say thank you to all of those sponsors in all of the capacities that they have shown up to do this work with me, because I would probably have quit by now if I didn't have all of them. It's a lot, right? And I'm just really grateful that so many people believe in this and want to connect with this and want to show up in this. And I also want to say thank you to every single one of you, because you are just as important as those official sponsors that I have. Your presence here is what makes this work and what makes it worthwhile for me. And standing in solidarity for our transgender community is one of the best things we can do this year, because there's so much suffering and so much violence that happens. And so I want you to just know how valued and valid you are just for sitting in the chair that you're sitting in. So thank you for that. And I love all of you, even if I don't know you. I love every single one of you for being here. So thank you. So now we get into the reason why we're here. So the Transgender Day of Remembrance event was first observed in 1999, and it was organized by Gwendolyn Ann Smith to memorialize the murder of Rita Hester, who was stabbed several times and left for dead. And that murder has still not been solved 21 years later. This event has evolved from a web-based project to an international day of action. And by you being here, you're providing action. This event commemorates and memorializes the transgender individuals who have died as a direct result of violence against trans individuals, and it has grown into an international call to action from trans rights groups and allies. This day is spent honoring those lost to trans violence, and it's our best opportunity to fully contemplate how devastating those losses are. This annual event, which celebrates the lives of the trans individuals that we have lost, falls on November 20th each year and seeks to combat trans violence, stigma, and erasure, and has for over 2 decades, in a variety of different ways, continued to do that work. Activist groups such as Trans Lives Matter, Human Rights Campaign, and Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, and many others, offer education, history, and ways to get involved in ground-level activism through their websites. So I encourage you to search for those organizations and try to find ways to be in action with them. But the most important function of Trans Day of Remembrance is to restore dignity. That's the direct opposite of a hate crime, and that is why we are here. So here are the statistics. And this is the hard part. We've spent a lot of time and effort compiling this data, and it is appalling. This is the most fatal year ever for transgender individuals since we began reporting on transgender violence, which makes this day all the more important. Since 2010, more than 325 transgender and gender-expansive individuals have been murdered just in the United States. 2021 has already seen at least 56 transgender individuals fatally shot or killed by other violent means in the United States, the majority of whom were Black and Latinx transgender women. And we say at least because too often these stories go unreported or misreported. As is too often the case in the reporting of anti-transgender violence, many of these victims are misgendered in local police statements and media reports, and that delays our awareness of these deadly incidents. It is horrifying to have to tell you that this is the deadliest year of trans violence since record keeping began, as I mentioned. Gathered data shows an alarming trend of a gradual increase in the murders of trans and gender diverse people per year between 2008 and 2021. But these figures aren't complete. Due to data not being systematically collected in most countries, added to the constant misgendering by families and authorities and media, it is not possible to estimate the number of unreported cases. We have no idea who we don't know about. To put it in perspective, last year's total of the names that I read was 41, and the year before that was 31, and this year is 56. So you can see that there is a trend of increase of violence, of fatal violence against trans people. These victims, like all of us, are loving partners, parents, family members, friends, and community members. They worked, they went to school, and they attended houses of worship just like this one. They were real people, people who did not deserve to have their lives taken from them. These victims were killed by acquaintances, by partners, or strangers, some of whom have been arrested and charged, and others have yet to be identified. Some of these cases involve clear anti-transgender bias, and in other cases, the victim's transgender status may have put them at risk in other ways, such as forcing them into unemployment, poverty, homelessness, survival sex work, etc. And while the details of these cases differ, it is clear that fatal violence disproportionately affects transgender women of color, particularly Black transgender women, and that the intersections of racism, sexism, homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, and unchecked access to guns conspire to deprive them of employment, housing, healthcare, and other basic safeties and necessities that we all deserve to have. But even in the face of this physical danger, and this hatred, and this discrimination, transgender Americans live courageously and overcome unjust barriers in all corners of our country. But until we, as a country, collectively address and dismantle those barriers, transgender people will continue to face higher rates of discrimination, poverty, homelessness, violence, suicidality, mental health issues, substance use disorder issues, and it goes on. While it's tempting and often common to pursue largely reactive and temporary solutions, we must address the root causes of this violence to make our community safer for everyone. It is unacceptable that transgender and gender-expansive people are killed simply because of who they are. It's not enough to just sit here together and grieve these losses and these victims of anti-transgender violence. We must honor their memories with action. And that is what we're doing tonight. So again, thank you for being here with me and with us. So the TDOR 2021 International Update has revealed that a total of at least 328 trans and gender diverse people were murdered between October 1st of 2021 and September 30th of 2021. That's 18 more than in 2019. And that number is 328 too many. The majority of the registered murders of transgender individuals that are clearly transgender focused occur in Brazil, Mexico, and the United States. This year, Brazil had 153, Mexico had 66, and the United States had 56. But collectively, this adds up to a total of over 3,300 reported cases in the 75 countries that participate in reporting since January of 2008. And I want to sort of call out the fact that that's only 75 countries. There's a lot more countries in the world than that. So countries like Russia and Africa and Jamaica and Singapore and Vietnam and Saudi Arabia do not report gender-based hate crimes ever at all. So we have no idea of the people that we've lost in those countries, how they died, who they are. No one knows their names. And behind these statistical representations of numbers and percentages, these real people whose lives we value and who, as societies, we fail to protect, we need to do better for. This aggregated data indicates that Black and migrant trans women of color are most vulnerable and most frequently targeted. Social stigma, criminalization of sex work, especially trans sex work, and the abuse and exploitation and violence that exposes them to is one of the things that I want to call out and draw attention to. And these groups of people, these transgender people, and the ways in which they have to try to survive, they are repeatedly silenced and underrepresented within our communities and in our societies. COVID-19 has affected us all, and we all know that. But social differences and inequalities are deepened by the pandemic, especially for transgender people. And so I want to emphasize the gaps in legislation and systemic protection of trans and gender diverse people that has not happened and needs to happen. I also want to call out the fact that the Trump administration, while it was in office, was responsible for over 50 different policies, laws, revocations, and overturnings that directly, negatively impacted the trans population and left them more vulnerable to systemic discrimination and abuse than they ever were before. Those who strongly oppose the concept of trans people and often decry their very existence are much more likely to act upon that prejudice with violence when those types of laws are enacted, because they feel that they've been given permission to do so by those in power. We exist in a climate of microaggressions, systemic barriers, and there's clear hostility towards trans and gender diverse people, and that's connected to a disproportionate high rate of suicide, homelessness, housing crisis, employment crisis, medical discrimination, poverty, mental health issues, substance use disorder issues. And we need to pay attention to that. We as allies, whether you are trans or not, we need to pay attention to that, and we need to try to show up as best we can for the people who are suffering because of these systemic barriers that have been created through colonialism and racism and slavery and all of the things that this country's history has been built upon. And trans people are directly affected by that, just like Black people, especially if you are a Black trans woman. And I wish that it was really just enough to just be here and just be together and be loving and supporting our trans brothers and sisters, but it's not. Love is nothing without action. So all of us must remember that we are still here because we, as a queer and allied community, stood up and fought for our rights. Queer people were the first to stand for us and say, you deserve freedom and you deserve equity. And if we forget them because we feel like we've gotten what we needed, we have failed our entire community. And we cannot do that. We cannot move forward in a space of, I have what I need, so why would I show up for you? We must show up for each other. We must defend the weakest, the most marginalized, and the most affected in our communities. And we know that that is true of transgender people. So of all the things that I can ask of you today, I encourage each one of you to pay attention and to use your voice and to get involved. Please find a transgender-focused organization that you can volunteer for, work with, raise your voice for, give your money to, because transgender people deserve all of us to show up and show them that they're seen and they're heard and they're loved and they're valid. You are worthy of all the love we can give you. And if we choose not to do that, then we have failed to be the people that we want to be. And so I invite you to join me in this work that I do, in whatever way that you can find for yourself, because there are many ways to do this work, and we must. We must create equity for everybody who is not getting it, and that's what today is about, and I hope to see many of you in the future in other organizations that I'm a part of as you show up in this work and connect with this work and do what you can to support the transgender community, because you need to. It's important. So, I want to also say that even though that we're here this evening to grieve and to be angry, we're also here to be reminded of the resilience of the transgender community, of the vibrancy of the transgender community. There's a lot of hope, there's a lot of love, and there's a lot of unity, and there's an opportunity here to heal some collective wounds. We all know what it is to hurt, to be suffering, to be rejected by society, harmed by society. And I want to just remind all of you, especially those of you who are transgender in this room, that you are unbreakable. You've already proven that because you're still here, being who you are. And that resilience is inspirational to me and to so many other people. Keep being you. You're fantastic. You're beautiful. There's nothing wrong with you. Don't let anybody ever tell you that there is anything wrong with you. You're freaking lovely. And I'm so glad that you have given me the space to be here with you and to celebrate you, because you deserve to be celebrated, because you inspire all of us to be better, to be more vibrant, to be more beautiful, and to be stronger and more resilient and live in our truth in a way that only transgender individuals really know, because that space is so special, and most of us don't know what that looks like or how to do that, but you show us how, and that's fantastic. And I just want to honor that and love all of you for being who you are. Thank you so much. I'm going to skip over some of this stuff because I've said everything I felt like I wanted to say. So tonight, we have 3 fantastic speakers, all of whom I know and love, and I'm so privileged to be able to have them here with us this evening. So our first speaker tonight is Guecha. Jessie is a community legal resources manager at QLaw and works on connecting LGBTQ+ community organizations and legal organizations, and helps those legal organizations to better serve the LGBTQ community, and makes community guides and other resources that are inclusive of LGBTQ community across the state. And currently, Jessie is focusing on housing law, especially after the eviction moratorium ends, but is also including housing discrimination and other landlord-tenant issues that are faced by LGBTQ+ community members. Jessie, welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you.
Take it away.
Chifu Haicha Jessie Guecha. Hi all, my name is Jessie Guecha. I am Muasca. I'm transgender and two-spirit and an immigrant and Latinx. And I'm also a father to my 2 kids. Is it not on? Is that better? Maybe? Okay. But yes, I'm a father to my 2 children. I'm a dad. I'm a trans dad. We're slightly cooler than regular dads, but still a dad. And I'm going to briefly tell you a story about when my oldest was born. Their other side of their family and ancestry comes from what dominating culture calls India today. And a few days after I gave birth to them, we got an excited call from their grandparents in rural India, and it was because the hijras had come. Hijras are gender diverse femmes, and since time immemorial in India, they have been beloved, valued, seen as sacred, and played an important role in society all across communities there. And one of the things is after a baby is born, families feel extremely blessed when they come. It's a huge, like it means the baby is really getting blessed, and like it's a huge like honor that they have come, and no one you can't tell them, you can't like call them up and like, okay, like we want to schedule something. That's not the way it works. But yeah, they're my kiddos' grandparents were so elated because they're like, even though they were born in the US, still word got out and reached, the hijras in just a few days, and they traveled and they came, and they sang outside the house, as is tradition, and then my kiddos' grandparents, as is tradition, thanked them and gave them gifts and money and, to show their appreciation. And that's just one of many, many ways across the world that transgender and gender diverse people were, and sometimes still are, but were very beloved, valued, cherished, appreciated, celebrated, honored. Unfortunately, we're not seeing that these days like we used to, but that was just a little bit in very conservative India that's still going on. But it also, like, in tribes all across Turtle Island, what dominating culture calls the Americas, from Alaska and Canada all the way through Latin America. We come from distinct native tribes and nations, and we had different words and things, but universally, Two-Spirit people were seen as if anything, better than cis people. They were seen as, and we are, we're able to go, we have better connections between genders, and therefore also between different peoples. A traditional role was in, helping communicate, build bridges, peacekeeping, taking care of children. We're also seen as being closer to the spirit world, and that is, both an honor and a responsibility for us. But unfortunately, with colonization, a lot has changed. As Esther said, a vast majority of the 375 deaths were in the Americas, or on Turtle Island. But we need to get back to how things used to be. This is not how things have been since time immemorial. From in the spectrum of time, this has just been a small amount of time that, unfortunately, due to colonization, due to the Catholic Church, due to a few things, people have got an idea that trans people are less than. That's not our ways. That's not anyone's ways. That was not happening anywhere on earth back in history. And there are different words. Two-spirit people, are, people with ancestry indigenous to the Americas. But Hijras in India, or Fasahini in Samoa, or if you're not familiar with your ancestral people's words, I encourage you to look that up if you can. Honestly, in some places that's been lost, unfortunately, and in other places and other some tribes there weren't words because they felt there was no need. If someone presents as a woman, they are a woman. There's no need to have a different word. If they present as a man, they are a man. But the act of harming trans people is no one's traditional ways. That is unfortunately something that's been happening in these recent times. And I just invite you to, even though we haven't got to experience it personally in our lifetimes, to remember the world that our ancestors had, where trans people were beloved, universally beloved, appreciated, cherished, cared for. When they were, like the Hijras that came when my kiddo was born, they were giving gifts, they were giving money to honor their special role in society. If they were seen as different, they were seen as better. That's one of the pretty universal things across the globe. Those like the Hijras or other women, they didn't have to turn to survival sex work. They didn't have to do things that put themselves at risk. Not that it's their fault, but yeah, the society, like, we used to support trans people. They used to have everything they needed. And unfortunately, that's changed. But I have some hope that hopefully we can get back there.
I do too. Jesse, can you speak a little bit to being a gestational father? I think that's a new sort of territory for a lot of people. And I'm so proud of you for being so open about that as part of your experience. And I think that it deserves to be shared, just to sort of remove the stigma around that and the discomfort around that. Do you feel comfortable sharing about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to share. Yeah, definitely, trans men can and do have, or can be parents, and also, can and do get pregnant and give birth to babies. In my case, it was before I quote unquote transitioned. I've always been who I am since the beginning, but I just didn't necessarily have the access to know about what my options were. Though again, all of that is pretty modern compared to how we did some things since time immemorial. But yeah, I have two beautiful kiddos. My oldest identifies as non-binary with they, them pronouns, and my youngest uses he, him pronouns, but they are 10 and 14. And I gave birth to both of them. I chest fed both of them until they were each over 2. And it was a great experience. And I also had the experience of being seen as their mom until they were both school-aged when I started taking TE and had surgeries and things like that. So my family's also had the experience of me going from mom to dad. So that's been a journey too. Pretty good journey, but.
I want to applaud you for your bravery and your openness about that experience. And that's something that's been important to me, that we don't talk about gestational fathers. We don't talk about that as a real thing that happens, and it's not weird, right? But people feel it's weird, and I want to call attention to that and say that giving life, regardless of how it's done, is always beautiful.
Thank you.
And we
I
never
agree.
judge it as something that is strange or needs to be shunned, right? And so I want to give you a round of applause for that bravery, and thank you so much. Jesse,
I'm
you're
always
fantastic.
happy to share. So that
I'm so happy to have you with us tonight. Thank you. Give Jesse a round of applause. Oh, and we just keep going. Oh my goodness. Our next speaker is Caesar Hart. So Caesar is an advocate and activist for the LGBTQ plus community and is also a drag king extraordinary for over the past decade. Started his drag in Kent, Washington, and has been blazing through Seattle's drag scene for many years since then. He is your past Mr. Neighbors nightclub, Seattle Pride Parade announcer, and co-host at Seattle Pride Fest main stage with the person who will be your next speaker, Aleksa Manila, to name a few. In recent years, he has served the Grays Harbor LGBTQ plus community by holding drag shows in the rural area, which was the first time that has ever happened. Trailblazing, we do that, yes. These shows give back to local nonprofit organizations or members of the community who are in need of assistance, and Caesar also works closely with the nonprofit organization Out and Proud Grays Harbor Coalition, which hosts the community's yearly Pride events, and he produces free all-ages evening drag shows for those events. And since July of this year, he has been serving as a speaker for the Speaker Bureau program with Humanities Washington, the first ever selected in the history of the program to speak to LGBTQ content and experiences. He travels or does virtual speaking events at libraries, museums, and corporate events wherever. So if I can introduce to you Seattle's premier drag king and king of the Pacific Northwest, Caesar Hart.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm so excited to be here. I wanted to make sure that I was able to have a voice, and I'm grateful that I was given the opportunity to speak to everybody tonight. I didn't know if we were going to have this little back and forth thing.
We can do
or
a thing.
Let's do a thing. My speech is over there, but I have a speech too, I had to be prepared. But yes, it was really important for me to be able to take part in the event today. Sadly, a couple of close title holders and community members who have recently been murdered that are transgender, and it's just been a road, and I'm tired of having to say, stop killing our people. So I want to make sure that I'm doing more than just saying it to myself or on Facebook. I want to get out there and spread that even more as much as I possibly can.
Yes.
Yes. So
This is the first time in a while that we've actually lost a couple people right here in Seattle to
Yes.
transgender fatal violence.
Yes.
Do you want to share a little bit about that? Because I know that there are people that you know and you were directly affected by that experience, as I've been too, but you can speak to it better than I can.
Right. Recently, True Scarlett, she was a title holder last in Lewis County, and sadly, she was murdered by her partner in October, and it was not a very good situation at all. They had a kid, and they found her body in the living room, and it just was shocking to all of us because she's such a bright light to our community and an amazing title holder, and just did everything she could to push the agenda that it's okay for you to be you and don't be afraid, and all of this stuff that we need to hear from everyone, and for her to be taken away from us is just, it was tough.
Yeah.
It's tough because we need those voices, and now we lose them, and it's just no one actually is safe, but we still have to live our lives, and we still have to be true to who we are and not live a life of a lie. That just doesn't work. We only get one life to live, and if you're not able to live it your way and authentically, then you're not really getting the full experience, are you? I mean, really? Are you really getting a full experience if you're living a life of a lie? Necessarily, no, you're not. You should be able to be living your life authentically without fear of anything, hatred, discrimination, violence, all of that. We should be able to live our authentic selves,
Yes.
period.
And I think oftentimes because we live in Seattle or the surrounding areas, we feel safer here because we are more progressive, more
100%.
leftist. And so we just assume that everybody's okay, right? That you can
Exactly.
just live out loud and do whatever you need to do,
Right.
which isn't true even here. But I also want to call out the fact that if we are one of the most progressive places in the country, what's happening elsewhere?
Right. And that's essentially, I moved from Texas 20 years ago to live in a
too.
more progressive state. So I knew that when I got to Washington, I wanted to get as involved as I could in my community to try and help change mentalities throughout the country or the world if I could have it my way. But it's definitely a shocker when it's happening here.
Right here.
Because Washington is my safe space. Like, I can leave Washington and my anxiety just goes through the roof because I'm like, oh man, what am I gonna get when I get out of these, city limits, or even just going back into Grays Harbor? That's a whole nother area of, we experience negative things from time to time, and obviously, as the nonprofit out there, we don't allow that hatred to continue, and we shut it down immediately and make sure that people understand that it's about love and not hate, and we don't want hate on the harbor at all in any form whatsoever, or you'll have to leave. So
That should be a tagline. No,
right?
hate, no hate on the harbor.
It is.
I
No
love
hate
that.
on the harbor. We literally had stickers going up and put up everywhere as soon as we started seeing negative things happening in the community, because we were starting to do our pride events and our drag shows, and there are people that just don't like it or don't accept it, and I think it's because they don't understand it and they don't know it. So really, unless you're giving it an opportunity and you're attending and you're seeing what's happening for yourself, I really don't think you have an opinion that counts, because you haven't even been there for a second to know that it really is okay, and it really is a room full of love and support, and it's a beautiful thing to be a part of. So it's hard for me to go out there and just let people just have their negative mentalities and think that that's going to fly, because it just isn't. It's just not going to work anymore. You just have to shut it down.
We know that ignorance creates fear, and
Yep.
fear creates violence.
Exactly.
So they are connected, right? So if we can change the ignorance just by being present with people who would have never expected to know us, connect with us, and
Yep.
understand us a little bit better, we are changing the world one person at a time.
Exactly.
Every person that we affect, by showing them that we are not the thing they feared,
Yep.
reduces the ignorance and increases the tolerance.
Yes.
And that's what we are
That's
trying to
what we
do,
want.
right?
Yes.
And that's what I love about the work that you do in Grays Harbor, because that had never happened before.
Nope.
You showed up in Grays Harbor and you were like, I'm here.
Right, y'all need some
Hi,"
rainbows up in
right?
here, okay?
And you just did your thing
Yes.
unapologetically, but you did it in a way that was coming from a place of love,
Yep.
and it increased that level of acceptance that we
exactly
need.
Yep.
And
that's
you
exactly
chose
it.
that. Like, most people don't say, I'm going to go out to
Right.
to Grays
People
Harbor
always ask me, what are your ties to Grays Harbor?
and do this
Nothing.
thing that nobody
Nothing. I don't
feels
know
comfortable
anybody.
doing, right? But
Right.
you did it anyway because
Exactly.
you knew that it was important to change
needed
that
it.
narrative
They needed it.
for that community.
Yep.
And you have been effective in doing that. And I have seen so many beautiful comments from people online about you saying, I'd never met a drag king before or a trans person before, but Caesar is fantastic. And now I see, right?
Right.
Now I see
Now
that the
I
thing
know.
I was afraid of
Is really
was
nothing to be afraid
moot,
of.
right? Like, it was not a thing I needed to even be concerned
At
about
all.
in the first place. So you
And
were
really,
changing
they're
hearts and
missing out.
minds.
They're selling themselves shorts because they don't get to have these relationships with beautiful
Yeah.
people. You're not even, you yourself aren't even taking all of life's opportunities in, because you're shunning out people that
Yeah.
are amazing individuals that give back to the community, and nobody's even making them do it. They're doing it on their own because they want to. You know what I'm saying? That's
It
why I
also
was
really helps that you're a really fantastic drag king, I'm just
Well,
going to
know,
say. For those of
that's
you
a
who have
little
not
sprinkle
seen
on the
Caesar
top.
Hart perform live, he is the real deal. I just want to give you some,
Thank you.
some,
Thank you.
some sprinkles.
Props.
You are such a good performer.
Thank you.
And I love this connection between you as a performer and you as an activist.
Right? It's
You
my
have
platform.
found a way to connect them together, and that is so cool that you're using your passion and your performance to change the communities that you're
Yes.
in.
Yep.
That is so cool.
That was
and I want to give you
basically-
all
thank
the
you
love
so
for
much.
that. Thank you,
Thank you
for
thank
doing the work that you do.
Thank you. It is really my pleasure. I hope one day I don't have to do this anymore, and
Yeah.
that we can just live in a world free of just being who we are and don't have to worry about anything like that. But that was one of the reasons why when I started doing my shows out in Grace Harbor that each and every one would raise money for a local nonprofit. People can't hate on that, right? I mean, you're helping your community. And it's not just the gay community, it's all the community. If you need help, then here you go, come on down. And now everybody in the Grace Harbor is like, oh, you need help? Just go talk to the drag queens, they'll help you. And I'm like, yep, we sure will. Get in line, let's do it. So I'm grateful that I've had the opportunity to build my platform and use my drag to give back to the community. It's not something that's new. We've had drag queens raising money for LGBTQ forever, as far as I'm concerned, since the beginning of all gayness.
All gayness.
But they have been doing this, the leather community. Like, I'm just taking what our history has shown that we can do and we have done, and just put it on a bigger scale and do as much as we can to bring good into the world and let people know that we really are just about love and support. And
Just love.
That's
yes.
it. Just love.
Just
There's
love.
not more than
And
that.
you're doing it.
I am. I'm doing it all the way, baby.
You know, all of us activists and social workers, we love to say, like, please put me out of a job.
Right?
Right? Like,
Right?
I
That's
would
the
love
goal.
to live in a
That's
world
the
where I'm
goal.
not necessary anymore. You know, like,
Exactly.
that's what we want.
Yes, I'm here
So
for
thank
that.
you.
Yes, I'm here with you all the way. I
That's
appreciate you. I
fantastic.
support you. I'm so grateful that you did this and you
I'm
continue
so
to keep
grateful for
doing it.
you.
It's not easy work. I know it's not easy work. It's thankless work.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you put a lot into it. It's not just about actually the emotions. You're emotionally invested in this stuff. Like, it's not easy, like, preparing for any of this stuff, because it's sad. Like, it is. It just is sad. And you want it to stop.
Yes.
And it just is going the wrong direction. Like,
While we're
supposed to be
fighting
going
to
less.
change this, it's also making us feel like, why hasn't it ended yet?
Right. What is the holdup? Why?
Like, how do we get where we're wanting us to be? I don't want to have to
Where is
have
the
this event
memo being
anymore, right?
lost?
I would love to not
Right?
have to have a Transgender Day of Remembrance because we are not losing trans people
I
anymore.
can't even imagine those days. But I hope to God that I'm alive to see it. That's all I want. That's all I want. Is to be alive.
And we'll do a
to
drag show
see it.
together.
Ooh, yes. I'm here for all of that.
Caesar, I love you.
I love you.
Thank you so much. Is there anything you want to leave us with?
I would just say, take home tonight and ask yourself, like, what can I do to help these individuals who identify as transgender, gender nonconforming, non-binary, and how can I help them have a better life in this world? Like, how can I make sure that I'm doing my part, supporting those nonprofits that continue to have to do this work over and over each year, knowing that nobody's counting these deaths, and we don't even know the true number, which is even more frightening to me, because I feel like the numbers that we do know is just like a sliver of an example of what the real truth is happening out there, and we don't even have a clue about how many people there are that we're losing. So how can you help? How can you be a part of it? We all are fighting. You're not alone in this fight. Just remember that the community is a major part of everything that we do, and you're not alone. That's the other thing, is that I want people who identify to know that you're not alone. Even if you may feel like you're alone, you're not. We are all right here.
Thank you, baby.
Trans people belong.
Yes! Yes, give Caesar a round of applause. Thank you so much, Caesar. You're doing such good work, and I'm so grateful to know you and call you friend. And thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom and your experience with us tonight. Oh, we're going to keep going. We're not done yet. Did you think I was going to quit there? So, I am so honored to introduce you to tonight's next guest speaker, Aleksa Manila. Aleksa is Seattle's sweetheart of social activism. They are a genderqueer Philippine ex-immigrant, and their passion lies in honoring and uplifting marginalized communities, especially BIPOC and gender-diverse people. Their early years started with HIV education and intervention, targeting young Asian Pacific Islander gay men, and that commitment blossomed working closely with LGBTQ organizations like Public Health Seattle and King County, Seattle Counseling Service, Lifelong AIDS Alliance, People of Color Against AIDS Network, Entre Hermanos, Utopia, among others. There are many. This person has been busy, I'm just going to tell you. So finding her platform as a performance drag artist, she focuses on the voice of power and visibility for human rights centered on LGBTQ history and legacy. And she is a sought-after keynote speaker, expert panelist, fundraiser, auctioneer, moderator, and MC at various events. And I have had the pleasure of DJing at Seattle Out and Proud's volunteer park pride event. What was that, like 4 or 5 years ago? Oh God, we're old, honey. No, I'm kidding, I'm old. You're not. I'm old, you're not. But we got to know each other and work together. We both work in substance use disorder realms like behavioral health and mental health. And we are both real busy working with other organizations that do the things that we are passionate about, especially for the LGBTQ and BIPOC communities. And I am so honored to have you here with us tonight. Aleksa, please come up and give us what you got.
Thank you. This is on? All right,
Yes.
good. Had I known it was going to be this setup, I could have dressed up as Adele. Hi, everyone. But first and foremost, I truly want to thank you, Astra, for organizing this, being an amazing leader, and recognizing the village that it takes to put something like this together. And for folks that are wondering why I look so festive, well, number one, I'm a drag queen. But truly, first and foremost.
Oh my God, you are?
Boo! Happy Halloween. One of the things I often focus on is celebration, but most especially on a day like this, because I want us to celebrate those who couldn't celebrate anymore, at least in person while dwelling with us. I prepared something. However, as I'm listening to everyone, particularly to you, Astro, I'm finding that there's words that I wrote down in here. So I didn't want it to be like a Melania Trump stealing Michelle Obama's speech moment. However, I want to flip it, and I do want to be redundant because I wanted to stay here. I wanted to stay here. I wanted to continue on here, and I wanted to stay on here and spread that love. So you're welcome that I'm repeating things. So mabuhay.
Mabuhay.
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Aleksa Manila, and I primarily use she pronouns, but he, they, and sha are totally okay. And I stand, I'm sitting. I'm gonna be, I'll try to be dynamic and
Show
just
off the
kind
dress,
of-
mama.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, also I'll look statuesque if I stand. Look statuesque. So I stand before you again on Duwamish land, and you've already heard this, of the Coast Salish peoples of what we now call Seattle. But if you didn't know this, it is named after Chief Sealth, whose descendants are very much with us today. As a proud Filipinx immigrant from the Philippines, I humbly ask permission to be part of this land's history, storytelling, and its legacy. And I urge all of you to do the same, to recognize, celebrate, and pay respect to its native peoples whose lands you now call home. And I mean not just the special events like this one, I mean every day, when you have moments with your friends and family, giving thanks days coming up, I flip it around so that we investigate what that actually means when we say Thanksgiving, right? And for some of us, we call it Friendsgiving Day. I know I have for many, many years. And as you know, since 1999, when the rest of the world was concerned about computers combusting into thin air because somebody thought that they couldn't figure out that these technological advances could handle the year 2000, 2000 and beyond in their system, as you heard, Gwendolyn Ann Smith honored her friend, Rita Hester, a transgender woman who was killed in 1998. She honored her through a vigil that commemorated all the transgender people lost to violence since Rita, and began an important tradition that has become the annual Transgender Day of Remembrance. that we are now coming together for this evening, as you already know. Let me step down a little bit. I want to make sure I was looking. I didn't want to do a Miss Universe, yes, slam dunk, not on purpose. So, 22 years. It feels weird to say happy anniversary, right? Actually, it's disheartening. It breaks my heart. Over 2 decades. 22 years. Think about it. There's somebody out there celebrating their 1-year anniversary of being able to go to a bar or nightclub legally in the United States. Unless you're in Canada, of course. According to GLAAD, transgender people, and particularly transgender women of color, are disproportionately affected by hate violence. Sadly, the tragedy of these incidents often compounded by reporting that does not respect or even exploits and sensationalizes the victim's gender identity. I was thinking of personalizing it, but it can't get any simpler than that. Year after year, about a quarter of transgender people die, oftentimes in horrific and traumatizing ways I dare not say. And that's just in the United States. I don't have to be a mathematician to remind all of us that 1 is far too many because of our identity, because of our gender identity, because of our being, because of our humanity. Unless anyone has forgotten, we are people too. Just like you, just like me, imperfect. But it's 2021. We've passed marriage equality. We have protections for LGBTQ workers. Washington State accepts gender X on its driver's license. There's insurance coverage for gender-affirming procedures. There's more transgender visibility, right? Transgender visibility in popular media, television, cinema, so on and so forth. And the TikTok. With notable people like Laverne Cox, Janet Mock, Isis King, folks on Pose, some of the contestants of RuPaul's Drag Race, yes, even Caitlyn Jenner. That's right, it's 2021. And it's only November 2021. It's not even over yet. And already, when I looked, it was 45, but as you heard, it's 56 now. 56 transgender people have been killed in the United States alone. On November 9th, the HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, reported that more transgender non-binary people died in 2021 than any other year the organization had previously recorded. And they've been doing this since 2013. Yes, I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know. And how apropos, we're inside a church. Let's look at this from another perspective. Just a few days ago, the New York Times released a statistics report where it shows after years of decline, homicides jumped in 2020, where they calculated it at 6.5 per 100,000. And according to the FBI, 30% increase with more than 21,500 homicides recorded. The article continued to state, the reasons are elusive, the impact is immeasurable. To conclude, in dozens of interviews, criminologists, city and state officials, and people close to murder victims could not name a single direct cause of the spike in homicides and said that it could take years of data collection before the phenomenon is fully understood. Ironically, we in the LGBTQ plus community and ally communities already know it too well. Why throw these numbers around when we already know too well why our transgender, gender nonconforming siblings are being murdered? Well, sadly, because at times to be heard, they want to hear numbers and science. So for those not in the choir, so to speak, allow me to throw in some more numbers for you. In 2020, as you heard, there are over 300 transgender people killed across the globe. Did you know the average age is 31 years old? The youngest being only at 15 years old. Remember, 1 is far too many. We die at the hands of murderers who target us. Because of our identity, because of our gender identity, because of our being, because of our humanity. Did you know that 22% of them were killed inside their own home? Their safe space. As you heard, to this day, Brazil has the most number of transgender deaths at 43% of all the numbers combined across the globe. That's 152 transgender people in Brazil alone. Mexico with 57, last I counted, but now it's 66. Now don't let this fool you that other countries and continents are better. In the United Kingdom, transphobic hate crime reports have quadrupled over the past 5 years. Please note that these are the ones reported and documented. So many more go unnoticed by society, ignored by the government, misrepresented in the media, silenced, erased, even after their deaths, as if that wasn't enough. So what can we do besides a moment of silence or a prayer too? For our larger LGBTQ community, we have to address the elephant in the room. Because when we say the LGBTQ plus community, the stereotype and image of the community is the cisgender white gay male. We have to address racism, sexism, transphobia, misogyny, patriarchy, ableism. Simply turn on your Instagram pages and you'll see what I mean. You don't even need Grindr to see it up close and personal. It starts from within. The systems and institutions that have historically, systematically, thematically, and perpetually teach our children that transgender people, especially transgender women of color, particularly black trans women, are bad people. How much longer are we going to discuss restroom access for all genders? I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. There are only a couple of things we all need to be concerned about when it comes to toilet use. Number 1 and number 2. Now, if you're 18, please register to vote. If you're able to, vote for people and policies that benefit all people, but especially focus on the needs of the most vulnerable. That is your right to take care of your fellow human being. Can't vote? That's okay. Lobby anyway. Put up yard signs. Join rallies. Encourage and invite your friends and family who can vote to vote on your behalf. Donate. Give money. Share your time and resources. Volunteer. Transgender rights are in a global recession, which has accelerated since the COVID pandemic. In the US, more trans people were killed in 2020 than any year on record. I'm repeating myself, I know. A majority were black trans women. According to the Insider, of the 71 homicides in 2019 and 2020, 56 were trans women of color and 46 were black trans women. Black lives matter. Black trans lives matter. Black trans women's lives matter. As fellow transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary people, let's celebrate each other while we are still living. Don't wait. And perhaps when we do celebrate each other, we can truly live and thrive. Right here, right now. Our very existence is a manifestation of our strength from within, the courage to be unapologetically our unique, special selves. We are the products of social activism, street riots. We are the children of those kicked out of their own homes because they were different, unique, and special. Our ancestors are two-spirit, gender variant, the Fafafine, the Hijras, the Babaylans of the Philippines. They were healers, educators, and leaders, revered and respected until conquistadores, colonizers, erased their existence. Sound all too familiar, huh? Remember that these histories and legacies from within and from our foremothers and forefathers now emanate into our physical appearance, an objective manifestation of our beauty that many people do not understand or refuse to accept the power, the strength, the might, the courage to be unapologetically different, unique, and special. This is a call to action for everyone and everybody, including myself, but especially for folks in positions of power and privilege to give space, create space that is safe, creative, and beautiful. It is our collective responsibility to take care of the most vulnerable, the children and the elderly, differently abled bodies, those who speak different languages, the poor, people of color, indigenous peoples, Black, trans women. We all have hearts, we all have minds, we all have spirits, we all have bodies, we all have gender. There exists love within our hearts, peace within our minds, hope within our spirits, if you let it, if you allow it, if you invite it. And only then will we recognize the resilience within our bodies. Let's uplift each other, create safer spaces for the most marginalized so our stories can be told, shared, celebrated from the first person perspective, and not when it's too late. My name is Aleksa Manila. I am a public health researcher, social worker, and therapist living proudly as a genderqueer, transgenderist drag queen. Thank you, and salamat po.
Thank you for that. Beautiful. Thank you. Wasn't that good? I don't know what to say now. I'm like, geez. Way to steal the spotlight, Aleksa. Rude. I love you so much. That was fantastic. So, Aleksa, part of what I heard you sharing was this idea of needing more allyship. And I think that oftentimes people who desperately want to be our allies don't know how, and they're sort of uncomfortable and they're afraid, or they feel like maybe we won't invite them. And so for those of you who might identify with that idea of being an ally but not knowing how, I encourage you to get over your stuff and just show up. Oh, we need you, we love you, we want you, you're fine, come through. All right? Got it? Is it that hard to do? Okay, so I'm gonna come get you if I'm watching, okay? Thank you, Aleksa, you're fantastic. Well, let's give a round of applause to all three of our speakers. That was beautiful. I really wanted to sort of showcase as much of the full range of experience of being transgender as I could, and so I tried to do sprinklings of different things. Of course, I can't do it all. Like, you would be bored by the time I was done getting all of that stuff to you. It would have been like 10 speakers. But my hope is that in the course of tonight's programming, you get a little bit of a taste of all of the different ways that we can exist when it comes to gender, gender expression, and the kinds of work that we do, all of that, right? I was having a conversation with Morgan, and I hope you don't mind me saying this out loud, Morgan, but I was having a conversation with Morgan earlier today about this idea of focusing so strictly on transgender women of color. And we know that that's important, and I will never stop doing that. But I also don't want to be so lasered that I miss all of the other ways that you can live out loud, right? And so it was really important for me to sort of broaden that spectrum in the sorts of people that we were inviting, the conversation that we're having, the expressions that are being brought to bear in this programming, We know that transgender women of color are the most likely to suffer from fatal violence, and that will probably not change anytime soon, and I will not stop fighting for that and calling attention to it. But I also want to call out the fact that gender diverse experience is so much bigger than that, and we can't get stuck in only thinking of it as this one thing or this one place. We need to recognize that gender, first of all, is a social construct, and it's sort of bull, right? So we have to stop looking at it as this thing that we need to judge, as this thing that we need to be able to call out and name and give an identity to. That's not your business. Let people be who they are and choose that for themselves. And it is your job to ask, not to judge, and not to pick for them. And that is what's most important to me when I do this work, is that we allow all human beings to just be human beings and live out loud in whatever way works for them. It is not your job to choose that, change that, judge that, or interrupt that. Let people be who they are and love them because they're human. And the potential that each of us has is so precious. It doesn't matter what it looks like how it's expressed. That potential is so precious. Each one of you in this room has the opportunity to change the world. I don't know if you will or will not, neither do you, but you have the opportunity. When we stifle people just because we've made a judgment about them because of the way that they choose to express their gender or an identity that we think we need to place upon them because we have been trained to do that and to put people into labels and into boxes, we have taken away their potential by telling them that they can't be the thing that they might want to be because we think they should be something else. It's ruinous. So of all the things that I can say to you tonight, I would like that to be the thing that you hold. Human is human, and it doesn't need to look like anything you've ever seen before. Who cares? We're really all the same at the end of the day. We all bleed blood. We all have needs that are the same, desires that are the same, challenges that are the same. We need to stop looking at each other from this pull yourself up by your bootstraps, productivity sort of space that we live in a colonial society that tells us that we are going to judge you by being here, and if you're not here, you're not good enough. If you don't look like this, if you don't fit the binary, if you don't make enough money, if you aren't married with 1.2 kids and a white picket fence and 2 dogs and a cat, you're not good enough. We've got to stop doing that. We have to let each other all find our own way and do whatever works for us, because when we allow that type of diversity, we're actually opening up doors for the world to be changed. Our world changes when we allow diversity to happen. That's how we grow. That's how we move forward and make progress. And so as you continue to look at each other throughout the course of the next year, I want you to stop looking at each other with judgment. I want you to stop using this binary and these narratives that we've been trained into as the way that you choose to decide whether you are accepting another person or not, and just allow people to tell you who they are, and know that them being something new rather than being scary might actually be the revolution we've all been waiting for. Let that happen. I encourage all of you to just lean into it. Just lean into it. It's going to be fine. Don't worry. So with that, we are going to move into the next component of our programming for the evening, and I'm going to invite Morgan to come back up here and share with you the work that she has done to compile the list of names that we know for this year.
I'm also going to throw out my script. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about the process of creating this list that I do, particularly because the process changed a little bit this year. I would like to thank Human Rights Campaign, Trans Lives Matter, Trans Murder Watch, and the many blogs and Twitter crime feeds that I started following this year. This year's list was much more engaged. I would often follow up on cases to see if arrests had been made, to see if progress had been made. And so what I can now share is it usually takes about 2 weeks between when a death is reported and when we, the community, find out that a trans life was lost. Because there's usually a period of dead naming before the community is informed. And what's really tragic in many cases is people's own communities don't know that they've lost someone until that 2-week period has passed. I also want to talk a little bit about, first of all, I want to thank anyone who's joining us on the live stream.
Hi.
You are also showing up, and we really appreciate you. And this will be posted to our website for posterity. So if you are watching this in the future, hi. So back to the sad stuff. So every year when I make this list, there are conversations about who gets named and why. Trans Day of Remembrance was created to celebrate the lives of those who have suffered violent deaths as a result of transphobia. And every year, I have to take names off of the list. And so here are a couple of examples of things that don't make it on the list. This list does not include suicides. In many cases, we do historically, and for journalistic reasons, suicides are often not reported. And so even when I do have a handful of names that are deaths by suicide, I really want to say all of their names, and so this list does not include those names. This list also does not include the names of those who have died due to medical malpractice or COVID. There are a myriad of complex institutional issues that transgender people face when accessing medical care, and those numbers just simply cannot be pinned down as violent deaths. When we know the cause of death, we do say it. And again, because I did the list a little different this year, I do have more detail in some cases, and we do not do this to glorify this at all. In the cases where a suspect was named, I do not say that name. We are only here to say the names of trans people whose lives were lost. And so, trigger warning, content warning ahead, some of these are really rough, but I think it's really important to know what caused this. Do I have anything else to add? And then tonight we will be reading the US list. In the earliest years that I did this list, I did the whole world. And first of all, it was soul destroying. And then I quickly realized that, as Astra mentioned at the beginning, we have entire nations that don't report. We have some nations that are really good about reporting, like Brazil and the Philippines, but we have entire continents where we have nothing. And so part of the reason I stopped creating the full worldwide list is, again, I can't say all the names. And as we've touched on repeatedly, these are only the reported names. And I think something to keep in mind is that every year I have done this list has been the record breaker for doing this list. And I do think it's worth acknowledging that while we do know that violence is going up, as reporting improves, numbers go up. They have to go, I hate to say this, but they have to go up before they go down. We may have to see them, I don't know how many we have to have before we really take action. Can this be the last giant list like this that I make, please? But I do just want to recognize that the numbers change when the reporting gets better. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and do the list. I do encourage you to visit Trans Lives Matter online and look at the full list and say as many of the names that you can. But we're going to do the US list.
Yes.
We never actually discussed how we're going to do this.
Oh.
Don't worry, I have a plan. I got this.
So I invite all of you to stand up. And I'm hoping all of you have a candle. What I would like to invite you to do now is to make a perimeter around the sanctuary And we are going to pass flame to you, and we are going to stand together in solidarity while Morgan and I read the names
And they will
of those we have
appear
lost. And they
on
will
the
also
screen.
appear on the screen. So this candle is sacred, by the way, which is why we brought it.
Do you just want me to go around and light?
Yeah. And everyone just pass it around. What is it? I have promised the church that we will not set it on fire, so please be careful. But I think we're okay.
Skylar Heath, age 20, November 4th, 2020, Liberty City, Miami, Florida. Skylar was shot on November 4th, but due to misgendering and dead naming, her murder was not reported until over 2 weeks later.
Fendi Moneza Armstrong, also known as Peaches, age 39, died November 12th, 2020, in Lithonia, Georgia. Fendi was found dead from a gunshot wound in a motel room. Police do not have any leads, and due to dead naming, her death was not reported until several weeks later.
Asia Janae Foster, age 22, November 20th, 2020, Houston, Texas. Asia was found in the street with multiple gunshot wounds on Friday, November 20th, 2020, Trans Day of Remembrance. Police suspect she had been killed elsewhere and her body dumped.
Kimberly Susan File, age 55, died November 22nd, 2020, in San Jose, California. Kimberly was one of 5 people stabbed in an attack at a shelter where she volunteered.
Shay Mashea Sims, or Shay Shay, age 30, November 23rd, 2020, Richmond, Virginia. Shay Mashea was found by police in a crashed vehicle. She had a gunshot wound and died at the scene.
Courtney Ashay Key, age 25, died December 25th of 2020 in Chicago, Illinois. Courtney was found unresponsive on the side of the street after being shot on Christmas Day. She died at the scene.
Alexandria Winchester, age 24, December 26, 2020, the Bronx, New York. Alexandria was shot dead on Boxing Day. 3 days later, an arrest was made in connection with her murder, but a motive has not been released.
Bonaire Black, age 18, died December 31st, 2020, in Atlanta, Georgia. Bonnie was found lying under a blanket on the third floor of a parking garage. Atlanta police said there were no signs of foul play, but witnesses claim that she was killed during an argument.
Tiana Davaria Alexander, age 28, January 6, 2021, Chicago, Illinois. Tiana was one of 2 people shot and killed by a gunman in a vehicle. She died at the scene.
Samuel Edmund Damian Valentin, age unknown, died January 9th of 2021 in Trujillo Alto, Puerto Rico. Samuel's body was discovered by a motorist with multiple gunshot wounds.
Natasha Kiana, age 37, January 12, 2021, Detroit, Michigan. Natasha's body was found inside her car on the passenger side. She had last been seen alive leaving a motel on December 29th. No cause of death has been released.
Bianca Banks, also known as Muffin, age unknown, January 17th, 2021, date of death, in Atlanta, Georgia. Bianca Banks was a transgender woman of color who was found murdered in her apartment on Sunday, January 17th of 2021. Details surrounding her death are murky, but friends say that her life was taken by a man in her own home who ultimately also took his own life.
Dominique Jackson, age 30, January 25th, 2021, Jackson, Mississippi. Dominique was found suffering from a gunshot wound after her vehicle crashed into a utility pole. She died at the scene.
50 Bands, age 21, died January 28th of 2021 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. 50 was shot by her boyfriend, who has been charged with her murder.
Alexis Braxton, or Kimmy Icon Braxton, age 45, February 4th, 2021, Miami, Florida. Alexis's body was found in an apartment building on the night of Thursday, February 4th. Miami police are investigating her death as a homicide.
China Carrillo, age 24, died February 18th in New Wilmington, Pennsylvania. China died in the hospital after being attacked in the backyard of a residential building, and according to police, they responded to a call at a home where they found the suspect beating a woman with a blunt instrument, who they asked to stop twice before they opened fire.
Jeffrey Bright, otherwise known as JJ, age 16, February 21st, 2021, Ambridge, Pennsylvania. JJ and his non-binary sibling, Jasmine, were both shot dead by their mother.
Jasmine Bright, also known as Jazzy, age 22, died February 21st in Ambridge, Pennsylvania. Jasmine was the sibling of Jeffrey, and they were both shot dead by their mother. Jazz was not yet out publicly, and their non-binary status was not confirmed until after their death.
Diamond Kyrie Sanders, or Diamond Nicole, age 23, March 3rd, 2021, Cincinnati, Ohio. Diamond was found in a parking lot suffering from a gunshot wound. She died in hospital.
Rihanna Parro, age 26, died March 17th in Los Angeles, California. Rihanna was killed by a drunk driver on Wednesday, the 17th of March. Security video shows that Parro walked down Eastern Avenue right before she was hit, with people following her. Many of her friends and family believe that Rihanna was pushed in front of a moving car by her then boyfriend, but police have declined to comment.
Chris Brandon Ruiz, age 26, March 28th, 2021, Lompoc, California. Chris died from a fatal gunshot wound following an altercation with Lompoc's police officers. The officers involved have been placed on administrative leave, and friends, families, and attorneys are calling for the California Attorney General to investigate the shooting.
Jada Peterson, age 24, died April 4th, Charlotte, North Carolina. Jada was found in a hotel room in an unresponsive state on Easter Sunday. In death, the local police and media continuously misgendered her.
Dominique Luscious, age 26, April 8th, 2021, Springfield, Missouri. Dominique's body was found in an apartment after she had arranged to meet a man via a dating site who has been charged with her murder.
Remy Fennell, age 28, died April 15th in Charlotte, North Carolina. Remy was found shot dead in a hotel room less than 2 weeks after Jada Peterson had been killed in another hotel room in the same city. Police in Charlotte, North Carolina issued a critical warning, noting that the deaths were probably related.
Tiara Banks, age 24, April 21st, 2021, Chicago, Illinois. Tiara was shot in her vehicle. She was pronounced dead at the scene.
Natalia Lopez, age 24, died April 23rd of 2021 in San Jose, California. Natalia was murdered and her boyfriend was taken into police custody. No further details are known.
Iris Santos, age 22, April 23rd, 2021, Houston, Texas. Iris was shot while sitting outside a restaurant in her car. She died in the hospital.
Kerry Washington, also known as Bobo, age 49, died May 1st in Clearwater, Florida. Kerry was found dead at the back of an apartment building. Local reports, many of which misgendered her and used a different spelling of her first name, did not offer other details about her death.
T. Harden, age 35, May 2nd, 2021, York, South Carolina. T was found in an unresponsive condition after a police officer was called to her home to conduct a wellness check. She had been shot.
Jahaira de Alto Balenciaga, age 42, died May 2nd in Boston, Massachusetts. Jahaira was murdered at her home in Dorchester by the husband of a friend who also stabbed his own wife and her dog.
Whispering Wind Bear Spirit, age 41, died May 3rd, 2021, York, Pennsylvania. Whispering Wind Bear Spirit was shot during an attempted robbery at their home.
Sophie Vasquez, age 36, died May 4th in Brookhaven, Georgia. Sophie was found unresponsive in her home by police officers while responding to a call that a person had been shot.
Danny Benson, also known as Pyreese Daniel, age 31, May 4th, 2021, Baltimore, Maryland. Danny was found in an unresponsive condition by police after being shot. Danny, who also went by Pyreese Daniel, was in the early stages of transition. Friends and family believe she was shot by someone she was in a relationship with while coming out.
Serenity Hollis, age 24, died May 8th in Albany, Georgia. Serenity was shot while walking along the street. Local police repeatedly dead-named and misgendered her. However, the DA said that every indication pointed to her murder being a hate crime.
Oliver Taylor, otherwise known as Ollie, age 17, May 19th, 2021, in Gervais, Oregon. Oliver died in the hospital a week after being kidnapped and shot by an acquaintance.
Haven A. Bailey, age 25, died May 24th in Villa Park, Illinois. Haven was fatally shot by a police officer in Villa Park. An officer said that they encountered a person walking directly toward them while armed with what they believed was a handgun. Police said Bailey was told to drop the gun several times. An officer then shot the person 4 times when they refused.
Poe Black, Oliver Jackson, also known as Legion, also known as Tommy, age 21, May 26th, 2021, in Slab City, California. Poe was reportedly stabbed and his body dumped in a canal. Also known as Oliver Jackson, Legion, or Tommy by his family, was a transgender two-spirit relative.
Casey Wilson, age unknown, died May 30th in Washington, D.C. Casey was reportedly murdered in southeast Washington, D.C., and no other details are known.
Tierra Marie Lewis, age 36, died June 12th, 2021, in Cleveland, Ohio. Tierra Marie died in the hospital from a gunshot wound on June 12th. Dead naming prevented the community from becoming aware of her murder until early August.
Nova Rue Watson, also known as E.J. Boykin, age 23, died June 14th in Lynchburg, Virginia. Nova died from his injuries after being found by police in a parking lot, suffering from a gunshot wound.
Taya Ashton, age 20, July 17th, 2021, Sweetland, Maryland. Taya was shot inside her home. A man she was in a relationship with was subsequently arrested.
Shai Vanderpump, age 23, died July 30th in Trenton, New Jersey. Shai was shot in the face while trying to defend someone else. Her killer was arrested the following day.
Coco Chanel Wortham, age 44, August 7th, 2021, Dallas, Texas. Coco was found with gunshot wounds after police responded to reports of a shooting in a homeless encampment.
Pooh Johnson, age 25, died August 23rd in Shreveport, Louisiana. Pooh was a makeup artist who also went by the name of Titanizer Moi. She was found shot dead in a car parked behind a home in a suburban neighborhood.
Zoella Rose Martinez, also known as Zoe, age 20, found September 1st, 2021, in Seattle, Washington. Zoe's body was found in an alley in the Finney Ridge neighborhood after being kidnapped from Maple Valley. A suspect is in custody and a cause of death has not been released.
Desaya Monet Smith, age 23, died September 6, 2021 in Dolton, Illinois. Desaya was found in a hotel room by police responding to reports of a shooting. She was pronounced dead in hospital an hour later.
Brianna Ulmer, otherwise known as Brianna Hamilton, age 25, September 17th, 2021, Chicago, Illinois. Brianna was shot in the head in the early hours on Friday, September 17th, and died in hospital.
Kier Laprie Cartier, age 21, died September 30th in Arlington, Texas. Kier was found in her car suffering from a gunshot wound, and she died in the hospital.
Royal Poetical Stars, age 26, October 2nd, 2021, Miami Gardens, Florida. Poetical was shot inside her vehicle late on the morning of Saturday, October 2nd. As a result of police misgendering, her murder did not come to light until nearly 2 weeks later.
Mel Robert Groves, age 25, died October 11th in Jackson, Mississippi. Mel died in the hospital soon after driving himself there while suffering from multiple gunshot wounds.
Kiva Scatter, age 34, October 15th, 2021, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Kiva's body was found in a field with a gunshot wound.
Jesse Hart, age 42, died October 17th in Banks, Oregon. Jesse's body was found in the woods outside the town of Banks, 25 miles west of Portland. Detectives suspect foul play and believe that she died at least 2 weeks earlier.
Joe Acker, age 26, October 25th, 2021, Boise, Idaho. Joe was in the early stages of her transition. She died after confronting a gunman who attacked the shopping mall where she worked as a security guard, saving multiple lives in the process.
Ricky Alchamuro, also known as True Scarlet, age 39, October 31st of date of death, Centralia, Washington. Ricky was shot at least 5 times by her boyfriend. Her body was found on their sofa next to their 6-year-old son, who survived the attack.
Jenny DeLeon, age 25, November 2nd, 2021, Tampa, Florida. Jenny's body was discovered on Tuesday, November 2nd. Police are actively investigating her death.
Markeisha Lawrence, age 28, died November 4th in Greenville, South Carolina. Markeisha was found dead in her home by family members. It seems she had been in an altercation with one or more people, according to the coroner's office. The office declared Lawrence's death a homicide. I would like to invite University Unitarian Church's Associate Pastor Beth to come up and share a few words with us before we close our programming for the evening.
So first, would you take a couple of deep breaths with me? And just honoring whatever it is that you're feeling in your body and in your heart. I know for me, I can feel a heart that is heavy with grief, and also a body that is feeling anger alongside the sadness of seeing the names and the faces and hearing just a little bit of these stories of people who were taken too soon. So much beauty and authenticity lost. And so as we close tonight, you're welcome to stay after for some sweets and some tea and warmth and the company of one another. For that is what we do. This is how we survive together. And this is how we honor the people who are no longer with us as well. And so I close with these words. Don't leave your broken heart at the door. Bring it to the altar of life. Don't leave your anger behind. It has high standards and the world needs vision. Bring them with you, and your joy and your passion. Bring your loving and your courage and your conviction. Bring your need for healing, and bring your power to heal. There is work to do, and you have all that you need to do it right here in this room. Go in peace. Go surrounded by love. And go enjoy wherever you can find it. Blessings on you tonight. Thank you for being here. And so you're welcome now. We'll start going out into that main fellowship hall, and where you will find cookies and teas and treats. And then if you're needing a restroom, just keep on going, and it will be on your right. So thank you.
As you exit the sanctuary, there will be a receptacle for you to douse your flames. You are welcome to keep the candles in memoriam of participating in this event, and we encourage you to do so as a memory. But we do ask that you try to be careful with the candle drip and extinguish your candles as you head out into the fellowship hall, where I will see you in just a few minutes, and we will continue to build community as we must do. I love you all. Thank you for being here.